generation, including in food system, banning destruction of goods, which I think is very popular also like in Europe, promoting circular business models, resource reduction when it comes to producing consumer items, quality and durability, because this is what consumers are asking for, localized infrastructure and production. We also say no data, no market. So we ask for traceability and transparency. This also helps us to avoid a lot of vague labeling or eco-labeling that really confuses consumers. So we really work around transparency and avoiding greenwashing. And of course, we also insist on absence of substances of concern, for which we promote zero pollution. And of course, this also protects human health. Next slide. And I would just like to mention some examples of some of the areas that we work with. So for example, we work in packaging, and where our goal will be prevention and reuse. And for this, we advocate for strong policies on packaging, prevention and reuse. For example, we are part of the Global Plastics Treaty, EU packaging and packaging waste resolution. And for us here, when we look at packaging, is trying to remove the burden from the consumer, because you have all these things that are delivered to you, and you can see that's very nice first image there. But really, what do you do with all this extra packaging? So it's trying to put back like the emphasis on the manufacturer side, coming up with standards to promote mainstreaming reusable packaging, foster interoperability, and reuse systems where we work with ISO, CEN, and ANSI standards, and also developing best practices or operating procedures for single-use packaging prevention, and also looking at standards on biodegradability and recycling where we cannot avoid such packaging. Next slide. Within textiles, we work a lot to promote consumers and removing, for example, worst performing textiles. We work within legislation, looking at minimum eco-design requirements, standards, for example, for clothes. We want to pull consumers towards better performing textiles, where we talk a lot about our work, and of course giving more consumer awareness in terms of like misleading labels. We work in legislation to push the environmental ambition in textile labeling, and also in standards which cover, for example, circular economy and also design for circularity, and supporting also reduction in overproduction of textiles, which we know eventually will end up in secondary markets, such as in developing countries. Next slide. Another example is that we work in e-waste and batteries. And some of our work include, for example, in electronics, making them last longer, making them more repairable, making them energy efficient. And I believe also for me, besides just having the environmental NGO hat, I am a consumer, and these are some of the things I would look for if I'm looking at electronics, ensuring sustainable management of electronic wastes and batteries, when you can see the list of standards that we work on, and also reducing and improving extraction of resources within electronics and batteries, and this works across all spectrums. Also looking at where electronics are manufactured versus especially where the raw resources are coming from, which is mostly in developing countries, and also trying to set, of course, a standard in where we have like sustainable extraction of such resources so that consumers can get what they need, but also it's done in a sustainable way. So we have further reading resources if you're interested, and thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you. You do so important work, and I'm so glad you mentioned the examples. I think it's very helpful for us as we go into the breakout sessions. Are there any questions for her? I think I'll just ask for questions at this point. Yes.
Very good afternoon, and thanks for that excellent presentation. That was very informative. Just to share a bit of information, in India also we have been handling these issues, and what we had done recently is that we have launched a right to repair portal. So what happens on that portal, that we have identified four categories of industries, that is agricultural equipments, then electronics, then we have household items and automobiles. All the repair related information pertaining to those products have to be given by the companies on the portal. That ensures repair brochure, how you have to repair it, self-repair videos, if you have any videos, the companies have to highlight it. If you have whatever system you have basically to provide the repair ecosystem, that also the companies have to give over there. Besides that, we are also thinking and taking it a way forward how the entire repair ecosystem can evolve. So just wanted to share that information with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that contribution. I mean, it's not really a question, but it's great to see what's happening in India. And just to mention, there's also the right to repair Europe as well, with very similar sort of strategy. And I think it's important to localize some of these issues so that when we have such alliances, to see what's really manageable within our context, and yeah, work together and collaborate on this.
Are there any other questions or comments? Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Now we'll go on to Rose Mafoto, and she's the Chief Executive Officer of the Consumer Council of Zimbabwe. She's a consumer advocate, and she's been a consumer advocate for 20 years, is that right? She is, among other things, she's had leadership roles in several organizations, including she's on board and council member of Consumers International, a commissioner with the Consumer Protection Commission of Zimbabwe, and a member of the Chair's Advisory Group, FISO Copolco. Rose?
I just got one from Dana. Thank you, Linda. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. It's after lunch, I understand. Thank you very much. I'm just going to share with you a little bit about what we do at Consumer Council of Zimbabwe within the circular economy. Excuse me, I will not have a presentation once again. I realized that I had much more to speak about than what was on my presentation. Consumer Council of Zimbabwe is an organization that started in 1955. I was actually surprised when somebody said the UN guidelines were in 1938, so we were not very far. But this shows we are now 70 years old, almost 70 years old. It's a membership organization with a mandate to handle consumer complaints, to carry out research, and we have a popular family of 6 baskets, which looks at the prices. I'm sure some of you will be aware that Zimbabwe is a very inflationary environment. So we do carry out regular price checks, and currently our basket for the month of April was standing at 502 United States dollars, which is very high because we are talking of a low income earner. The other mandate that we have is that of consumer education, and we do carry out a lot of outreach programs throughout the 10 provinces of our country and 52 districts, and we target the critical areas for consumer protection. Nowadays, we even collaborate with other organizations, particularly the regulators in different areas, environment, we've got the environmental regulator, we've got the energy regulator, the telecommunications regulator, among many other regulators. We also work with various non-governmental organizations. The last mandate is that of lobbying and advocacy. We lobby for a consumer protective environment in many spheres. We lobbied for quite a number of acts that came into being, like the Small Claims Act. We lobbied for that. We also lobbied for our Competition Act. We lobbied for the Patients Charter. We lobbied for quite a number of acts until we realized that all these acts, which were seeking to protect the consumers, were, disengaged, and some of the times you would find stepping on each other's feet. So we ended up lobbying for a comprehensive Consumer Protection Act, which I'm glad to report that we got the act in 2019 on the 14th of December. And within the act, we also lobbied to have a regulator who is called the Consumer Protection Commission, and we work closely with them. So as consumers, we continue to face consumption choices every day, and in making our choices, our decisions favor actions which represent either the secular or the linear consumer behavior. For example, when we choose to buy unpackaged food, we save the material resources used in the production of packaging. And when we service our cars regularly, we maintain the value of the parts and materials in the car. So these are some of the issues that we educate consumers on, to say it's always important to look at the bigger picture. And within the policy-making environment, in the consumer movement, increasingly we are recognizing the value of influencing consumers to make more environmentally sustainable choices, while at the same time respecting their right to choose. This is because some of the policies that address the production aspects of production and consumption systems are often inadequate to address the growing demand for the resources, which are so few, despite a lot of advances in resource efficiency. So we do have a lot of programming that goes around circular economy. For example, we run a program which we call the Consumer Action Clubs. Because of our background, where CCZ was started by two women's clubs, we still move with the theme of, clubbing for women. So we do run numerous clubs within the country. In every province we have clubs. And what we encourage them, the first thing that is common among all of them is internal savings and lending. So the club members will bring their money together every month or every week, depending on their constitution, and having pulled their resources together, they then agree to say, this year, what are we focusing on? So for this year, they are focusing on buying solar equipment, because we are promoting sustainable consumption, and solar energy is one of those. So they will buy for one person this month, the following month, going on. We also look at gardening, because most people will have enough land in their backyards to just grow a few nutritional vegetables. And so we start with the organic nutritional gardens. We train right from manure making, compost making. We purchase seeds for them, and we grow the seedlings. And we go on to, the actual planting of those seedlings. And they come up with their gardens with lettuce, cabbage, tomato, among many other, nutritional vegetables. We also take the education on a clean environment, because the clean environment is very important. Our country is infested with a lot of littering sometimes, and we target, our clubs to ensure that in the communities that they live, they must lead in the cleaning campaigns. The cleaning campaign, there's a program, a national program that is being run by government, and we encourage our consumer action clubs to participate every Friday. The national program is a monthly one, but for them it's now every Friday, where they have to clean their their environments, their local environments. So we also participate in standards making. A number of our members from Consumer Council of Zimbabwe, as well as the Consumer Standards Network that we have just started, is participating in development of standards, either through our National Standards Body, Standards Association of Zimbabwe, and also at ASO level. So we realize that consumer representation is a key component within standardization, especially looking at the circular economy. And as consumer protectors, we need to make an impact in ensuring that our consumption patterns are sustainable and they are safe and healthy. I think in a nutshell, these are some of the sentiments I can share with you. Thank you. Thank you, Linda.
It's interesting that you have partnerships with regulators, NGOs, the women's clubs, and trying to get consumers to make environmentally sensitive choices. Thank you so much. Are there any questions for Rose? Yes, I see one over there. Go ahead.
So how you are involving consumer groups in circular economy? What is the process and what they are doing?
Okay. Thank you very much. We are working with the environmental groups. In fact, we also have among our consumer clubs, we have clubs that are mainly involved in what we are calling environmental awareness. We have an MOU with the Environmental Management Authority. They are called EMA. We signed an MOU last year so that we start working with them. But the environmental clubs participate in the cleaning campaigns. They also help us with the lobbying. Right now we are lobbying against the single-use plastics, and we are doing this together with Emma. I mentioned yesterday that our Minister of Industry and Commerce now is actually in support of that, because he was recently appointed coming from the Ministry of Environment. So he definitely understands will be put in place. And the environmental clubs are helping us, our consumer action clubs in the environment. Thank you.
And you are working for environment with consumer groups. Any other issues with consumer groups?
Yes, we do a lot of work with them, the consumer groups. They buy in bulk. When there is, every year, round about June and December, those consumer action clubs buy their products in bulk so that they can get cartons. It depends on their numbers. If they are between 10 and 20, they buy cartons of, like the washing bars, the washing powders, sugar, salt, among many other products that are not, that will not go bad easily. Then they share. So they can finish the whole year with their stocks, and it's interesting for them, because then they don't have to continuously go to the shops, because ours is a very volatile economic environment, and inflation can just, push the prices up. So if you have your storeroom with all these products, you are geared to go for a whole year. You just buy the perishables. Thank you.
Now it's going to be your turn to have your voice heard. And are you going to? Yeah, okay. It'll be Dana.
Thank you, Linda. Yeah, so we're going to break up into discussion groups to develop some ideas and some conclusions that each discussion group can bring back to the full group. What we've done, in your handouts that you got when you registered, you got a copy of the workshop program. And on this program, you have questions for the breakout room discussions. And for the purposes of the discussion, we're going to break up into 3 separate groups, and each of the groups will be led by a discussion moderator. And could I ask each of them to stand up now so that you know who they are? They're John Furbank in the back, Eduardo Santiago on this side of the room, and Jens Henriksen, who's standing up just over there. And each group, before you get started discussing, will elect a rapporteur, so somebody who can report back to the full group about what the group discussed. So that would be when we all return. And then we will conclude, and what we'd like to do is take the results of your discussions and develop them into something that we can present to the Copolco Plenary tomorrow. To help you, we have flip charts, 2 of which will be brought down very soon, and we will then take the results of that, and we will then have the discussions and conclusions. And the last thing I want to specify is where you're going. So John Furbank and the group in the middle, the center aisle, will head down to the Kifari room. You just go out and go all the way down the hall, and you'll see it marked. And then right next to that is the Niati room, where you will go with this aisle will go with Jens Henriksen to the Niati room, and the rest of you on this side of the room will stay in the main room, and then the people online will be able to stay with us in the main room. So if we could break up into our groups now. There are refreshments outside. You can help yourselves and go to the room. Yeah, there's a comment from John. Yeah, we're going to reconvene here at 4 o'clock. Here. So yes. So if this aisle and the center could please step out, take coffee and tea, and go directly down to the